standing in between lunch and this talk, but I think this is when you get most attention as well, because you will be keen to actually see me finishing my note. But it's even more interesting because that will give you a food for thought. So namaskar everyone, my name is Akshay Tyagi and my pronouns are he, him, his. Like they said, I head diversity, equity and inclusion. How many of you do see mirror every day? Everyone? How many of you have seen that your one eye is either smaller or larger than the other one? Your finger of one hand is smaller or larger than the other one? This is how diverse we are in our own existence. But how many of us close our one eye when we look at the larger picture outside because the one is smaller? Or how many of us resist working with one hand which is smaller or maybe bigger because of their size? And if we don't do that, then why are we not accepting the differences which are right there? And this is what is important to recognize. And this is how I give it to this organization, that we have invested a lot of time in recognizing the differences that exist around us. Matter of fact that we don't even know how are we going to respond or react in next 15 minutes. And we accept the world to act the way we want. It's difficult. And this is how it is very, very important to understand that you as an individual have your own story, but your individual story is not the story of everyone on the other side of the table. And this, at the Lalesuri Hospitality Group, we are envisioning that from both the customer perspective and from our employer team perspective, it is important for us to ensure that people see themselves reflected and represented in not just the policies, but in the culture. And not just the culture, but in the experience that they are getting. And not just the experience, but also the experience that they are creating for the customers who are coming at the Lalit. Needless to mention, you must have observed the DEI welcome done by the team in the sign language at the arrival. And this is just a small representation that there are people who are claiming their spaces. There are people who are striving really hard to get there. But we need to understand that how much accessibility are we creating starting from the very beginning. I heard people mentioning about interpreters, but it is now again for us privileged people to have the accessibility. But how many of us actually invest time and energies to ensure that our parents who are blessed with somebody with a speech and disability to also learn sign language? How many such initiatives have we taken so far? How are we ensuring that schools that we are sending our kids to also have ISL experts? How many of us are thinking of mainstreaming education and not have separate schools always? How many of us are thinking of an holistic society wherein everybody could stand together and not in a special school and then labeled or judged because they're part of it? How many of us are thinking of a workplace wherein somebody is not used as a token or just the representation, but somebody who is claiming their space based on the meritocracy? But as we say, we are in a realistic world. It's still a distant dream. And to get to that level, there is a lot of equitable effort that are required from each one of us. Considering that, at the Lalesuri Hospitality Group, how we started is we put in a lot of effort in sensitizing our team members, but at the same time we realized that until and unless there is no belonging or there is not somebody who people can regularly relate to or go and talk to, people will still listen to the stories and it will go into silo. And that's how we started our journey and brought in people to work, and we started with a basic training program because we did not find hoteliers. And there are hardly 1 or 2 colleges which are for people with disabilities to learn hospitality. And that's how we started. So we designed this entire program wherein for 3 months people are just exposed to hotel, wherein they get to see, observe other departments, how does this work, what all areas do we work, and at the same time, we invested a lot of time and strength to put together job mapping, which again is very flexible, because when we learn about disabilities, you find them that somebody with a speech and disability might find some challenges. On the other hand, somebody else with the same sort of disability has some other challenge. So you cannot put or grab everybody under the same policy or the structure of framework. And this is how this entire division of ensuring that people with differences are seen. It is important that we put individual strategies into place so that we change and narrate these different initiatives as per the accommodation the other person requires. In last few years, we definitely have moved ahead. Whilst we have, like after this training program, we started with 115 on this training program across the group. And like after 3 months of exposure, we get into an assessment and get done an industrial training for 6 months, and then followed by an apprentice program for 11 months. So in near around 2 years, you actually create a resource for yourself basis your job mapping and basis your understanding of the communities. And this is what we have been doing at the Lalit. But as we are moving and learning about more diverse communities and groups, it is important that people should understand and should be seen. And while we were discussing, I was just discussing, one of my fellow colleague is also going to speak in the second half. But because we have an ISL expert, I also wanted to ensure that my team members who are sitting at the back also get this platform to learn about themselves and learn about all the other stories. And this is how we are building this ecosystem. We are regularly working with people because it is with them that we could create it and not for them just. We are regularly connecting with the parents as well, and also working a lot on the collaboration model, because diversity can never be an individual journey. Ensuring inclusion is an investment, and this investment needs people to come together. It cannot be Lalit just doing things, or it cannot be Ask Insights just doing things. We have to come together, put our energies together, because we are all together envisioning a world which is safer, inclusive, acceptable, and more favorable for each one of us, because all of us have different challenges. For that, what is expected and required, that our communication also needs to be that way, that we put together a model wherein even in the model and the experiences that we are showcasing on our social medias, on the other platforms, people get to see that, oh, there is something in the store. Like, I personally feel very humble to see the DEI welcome at the hotel, because when somebody with disability walk into the hotel, they feel that there is a belonging, there is a story, there is a connection. And this is what is expected. Like, for a matter of fact, I know that if I am entering a premise and if I see somebody like myself, or somebody maybe UPI'd because I belong to that place, or somebody who has been to Jamia because I studied in Jamia, there is definitely an automatic connection. And that builds and creates belonging. And this is what is very, very important. Training, ensuring that you are just not fitting people in, because it's not time to do that, because this practice has to sustain. And when you're working on a sustainable model, you have to regularly ensure that people are appreciated, people are recognized, people are welcomed. And like the pianist who also sung in the morning is a person with autism spectrum. If you're not going to meet this person in 1.5 hours and telling them that he's doing amazing, his confidence will go down. So these are small accommodations that you're making at the workplace to ensure that everybody feels represented. Like, people with Down syndrome and autism often doesn't want to work in long shift hours. So that minute change in the work hours or the model of framework that they are part of, like giving them 2 hours break, settle them, have somebody do those conversations, are very, very important. We also work with Akshay Tyagi survivors, and when some of them joined, we have a 6-day working policy with us. And when we started, we realized that it is just Sundays that they're getting, and they also have sittings with the doctors to discuss about their health. We don't want them to only see Sunday as one opportunity to visit doctors, which is again their off day, and to think of just their personal self even on the break. So because that would resist them to spending time with the families. So we invested and discussed and then put together extra 2 days off for SETech survivors across the group, so that on any of the days when they have an appointment, they don't think about a Sunday, but rather just go and do it. While designing all of this, communication is very important, because there is a very thin line of understanding why are we making these accommodations, because Whilst we are designing it for someone, people on the other side are also feeling that why is this discrimination happening to us? But there we talk about privileges. There we talk about the accessibility, there we talk about the framework that we have been part of, there we talk about the kind of easy access we have had to education, to healthcare, to infrastructure, and how we as a society collectively have not spoken about our people and have denied them of opportunities. And this goes out because many of us haven't had access to people with disabilities to learn about disabilities in our classrooms, in our college, because our college and us were not prepared. Many of us don't go and talk to people with disabilities because we think that we might fail. But that little much of effort from each one of us will change the world. And we'll always find a way. Like even when we started, we did not have anybody with disability, but we reached out to people. So moral of the story is that reach out, connect, recognize, understand, accept, and there we start with the action. And there is a lot more. I am around, Dr. Neeru is around, so many of us experts, so many of us learnings, because the learning journey, nobody is there who is revolving and changing the world to another extent. We are all learning, we are all on this journey together. We are here to learn, we are here to share, we are here to unlearn at the same time, because many of us are just doing things without thinking of an experience, but we need to think about an experience. And I would just like to add one thing, like they started with a share, so I will also close with a share, that छलांगों से जब ऊंचा उठने की कोशिश की मैंने, तो पाया कि आसमां को छूने का ज़मीं से भी आभास वही होता है. Which means that you always have to remain grounded, humble to yourself, because this is what makes you reach height, and this is also what makes you feel connected. So because we are all sitting together and are devising policies and framework, so it is only when we are grounded and we are reaching out to people without the bias that we will be able to change the world. So let's join hands together and come on an equitable platform where we are learning and nurturing each other at the same time. Namaskar.